In this video today, we're gonna going over every single character and the best characters in each role of Zenless Zone Zero. Because all of the 3 early access guides are finally out too that you definitely should have watched on this channel, we can also talk about where the next 3 characters will lie too. Sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Let's start with our least represented role, defense. And of course, one of my favorite characters in the entire game being Mr. Ben Bigger. And yes, you of course need to say it like that just because he's so cool. Ben is actually a pretty good character to start off with, especially with his strong parry mechanic. Even though any character in Zenless can clear the endgame content in the right team compositions, Ben is still on the lower side of our defense category. While there were some crazy shenanigans going on with him in the beginning of the game, he hasn't really grown as well as the other units in the role. Comparatively, Seth is our next unit and sees a little bit more use than Ben. Seth has more of a focus on anomaly teams especially, with his anomaly boosts and his decent shield. This gives Seth a slight edge over Ben in meta placement and team compositions, but neither of them are nearly as good as Caesar King. I will admit at first, especially in those early access videos on the channel, I wasn't a big fan of Caesar. However, over time and as I got to play her more and more, even in those testing phases, I really saw that she had a ton of value. She currently provides the biggest, best shield in the game, she plugs into a ton of different team compositions, and even works as a pseudo stunner with a built-in parry mechanic. Overall, she is still extremely worth pulling for and is in our upper echelon of current units in the game, which is why she rounds out our defense as the top spot. We also gotta talk about Pan Yingfu, who's our new physical defense unit. We know he focuses on his break force points, which will grant damage buffs and sheer force buffs to your DPS, in a sort of quick assist function. He's really easy to play, so if you want to dive down into him, go check out that early access video. We can safely put Pan Yingfu in between Seth and Caesar in the meta value of this tier list. Our next role is seemingly making a comeback in the overall meta, Stun. The original meta, closer to the beginning of the launch of the game, featured this 1 stun unit, 1 DPS, and 1 support team composition for most of the endgame content. For the few patches after, it started to die down a little bit. Nowadays, with the release of some of our more current units, it's starting to make a strong comeback. Starting with our A ranks, let's talk about the burger-loving Anby. Even though she's one of the first units you meet and acquire on your journey, she's actually very strong from a free-to-play standpoint. In fact, whenever I am testing a free-to-play team, it commonly does have Anby and her cunning hair friends on it. I would say she is slightly below our next unit though, being Pulchra. For this video, we will assume that Mindscapes are 6 for the A ranks. If you don't have Mindscape 6 on Pulchra, she won't be as useful as Anby. However, that 6 Mindscape makes it so her Aftershock focus damage turns into a boost for all damage instead. This changes Pulchra from only being useful for Trigger and Soldier Zero Anby into most of the roster. Both of these A ranks though do not compare to our S rank characters starting with Kalita. While Pulchra and Trigger function as off-field stun units, Kalita and the rest are on-field. You can of course still use Kalita in your favorite fire teams and you won't have any trouble clearing some endgame content. However, it's important to remember that Kalita has since been replaced by a few different units, mainly being perhaps our strongest unit right now in the stun category, Lighter, but we'll talk about him in just a little bit. From the livestream, we can actually see that all of the stun units are probably going to be receiving a buff in the form of this new disk drive set. The set is most likely going to be focused on Jufufu. It will inadvertently give all of the stun units we have a decent boost. Next, let's talk about Von Lycone, who has seen a strong uptick in usage ever since Hugo Vlad released a couple of weeks ago. Lycone is utilized the best on ice teams, and Hugo Vlad actually likes the double stun team composition. Additionally, he's probably on the easier side of characters to build in Zenless, especially because he has so many different options for W engines. From a meta standpoint, he has more utility than Anby, Pulchra, and Kalita, but not nearly as much as Qing Yi. When this character first released, she took the game by storm, becoming the best unit available. She really showed us what was possible from our stun units, and had an insanely fun playstyle. Repeatedly hitting the enemy with that crazy basic attack, quickly dodging and then resuming the combo all over again. Chingy is still very valuable in the overall standing, but she has diminished slightly over the last few patches. She can be used in tandem with our next character, Trigger. Like Pulchra, she also functions as a off-field stunner of sorts. Her best team will of course be with Soldier Zero and be in that Aftershock, but she is one of the most universal agents in the entire game. Because of all this and her fun gameplay, this puts her at number 2 in the stun category. I was reluctant at first to put Lighter at number 1, but just because of his sheer strength and buffs for fire and ice, he slightly has the edge over Trigger. While Trigger is more universal as a whole, every time a fire or ice unit releases of any sort, Lighter goes up in value. In this way, you could make a case for either Trigger or Lighter being the number 1 in the stun category. As for the super adorable Jufufu, she's probably gonna take Lighter's spot when she releases in just a couple of weeks. We got an awesome preview of using her in the story, and we can see that she has a huge variety of teams, even more than Trigger does, while providing insane levels of buffs. Feel free to check out that first impressions Jufufu video on this channel, as well as make sure you're subscribed for that full early access guide coming out soon. Next up is our most populated category, Attack, starting with Anton. While Anton and the other A-rank agents are on the lower end of the totem pole, they can still very much get the job done. From an electric attack standpoint, we have both Soldier Zero Anby and Harumasa as well for the S-rank agents that are just so significantly better. Korin and Billy are in the same boat, both being physical attack A-ranks. Billy in particular was my favorite character back in the CBT3, and I loved his attitude and his character design. But both him and Korin are still outmatched by Nekomata. Her damage is somewhere in the mid-ranks of the attack agents, and is not as much as our top tiers like Evelyn or Hugo, but she is still our strongest attack agent for the physical category. I will say from the standard banner S ranks we've talked about so far, there hasn't been any that I would recommend getting with your 300 selector. Nekomata still has less damage than Soldier 11 if you chose to pick her, or the best option would be Rena, who we'll talk about in the support section. If you don't have Evelyn, then Soldier 11 will be your fire carry in attack unit teams. Her playstyle is interesting in the fact that it's very Phantasy Star Online-esque, where you need to time your button commands in order to get the optimal fire damage. Moving up in the list, we have our Ether attack agent, Zhu Yuan. In the last time I made a tier list video, we had Ellen in this spot, but she has recently been buffed, and we can expect to see those in the 2.0 patch. Maybe this means all of our limited S ranks from before are slightly going to get buffed over the next coming year, but we'll save all of that talk for another video, and you can check out the early access Ellen guide that I'll make as well. For now though, Zhu Yuan is still our primary Ether damage from an attack standpoint. Her value can still increase in the future when we get a dedicated Ether stunner as well, since we don't have one of those yet. However, like most of our attack units, like Soldier 11 and Ellen, who we'll talk about next, Zhu Yuan focuses on big burst windows. In a weird way, this slightly diminishes her value compared to Evelyn and Soldier Zero Anby, since they are on field most of the time. Up until Hugo Vlad's release, Ellen Zhou was our only ice attacker. She brought us into Zenless Zone Zero's first patch and took the world by storm. She's still extremely strong and is actually getting buffed in 2.0, driving her value even higher. With that being said, Hugo Vlad is still a stronger ice agent, even though he likes to focus on those burst windows. Next up, we've got back-to-back electric attack agents, starting with Harumasa. He was originally released for free for all accounts during his patch. But make no mistake, this did not indicate that he was weak by any means, and he actually is very strong, even in the current meta standpoint. In fact, I still prefer his flashy, dodge-centered focus attack style, and use him quite frequently in Electric Weak content. In all fairness though, Soldier Zero Anby does technically overrule him slightly. She has a rare playstyle in that she wants to be on the field for a consistent amount of time, and her best team is that Aftershock team with Pulchra and Trigger, or Astriel sprinkled in. Her damage output is incredible, but it's still not as much as our other two characters in the attack we gotta talk about, starting with Evelyn. Currently, she's my favorite attack agent to use in the entire game, and her damage matches that fun playstyle. She features that strong chain attack focused fire damage, utilizing her main resources. However, there is one attack unit that is still stronger than Evelyn. His name is Hugo Vlad. His entire kit revolves around his main concept being Totalize, which is those huge damage numbers in the upwards of millions while the enemy is stunned. It also helps that he's one of my favorite character designs we've gotten so far in the game, and he kinda reminds me of Aventurine for all you Star Rail players a little bit. Perhaps our most impressive role category, and strongest to date, could be Support. The awesome thing about Support is that all of these units are very good and all completely viable, probably for the entire lifespan of the game. Rounding out the bottom of the Support category is Sokaku, our hungry little Oni character. Don't get me wrong, she still has a great playstyle, a very quick oriented switch out style that buffs the team greatly. She just isn't as strong as the other four in this category. I would give the slight edge to Lucy over Sokaku though, just because she's a little bit more general of a support. She also has a decent amount of damage included with her boars. She primarily loves being in that fire team, but her attack and energy buffs can circulate to any different team composition. Nicole Damara is our premier A-rank support agent. She surprisingly does a lot, aside from just buffing ether damage and attack. She fits into a ton of different easy to build free to play teams, like I always use in those early access videos. Plus, as we get more ether units, like how Vivian just released, Nicole's stonks go up, as she can apply corruption in addition to her ether teammates. There is a case to be made that Nicole is more universal than our next character, but I still give the edge to Alexandrina Sebastian. Of course, that being Rena for short, she is extremely good in shock teams and electric focused teams. In fact, this would be the one unit from the standard banner selector that I would suggest you all get if you don't have already. Especially M1 if you can get her. One of our #1 candidates for the best character in the entire game is up next, Miss Astra Yao. Throughout the video, you've heard me talk about characters how they can be slotted in with different teams pretty easily. Well, in Astra's case, this is true for every single team you can imagine. In our already stacked category of support, she is already significantly better than the rest of them. So far in the game's lifespan, there has not been one character that is more valuable than Astra Yao, even currently. Sadly, her rerun is coming up at the beginning of 2.0, which means she is paired up with probably who's going to be the best agent in the game now, Miss Yi Xuan, who is our brand new Rupture character. Since she's releasing on June 6th, she's going to bring us into the new era of Zenless Zone Zero. Whatever Chapter 2 may have in store for us, she will be the main focal point. If you've seen the early access video on this channel for Yi Xuan, you know how absolutely fun and broken her gameplay is. But I gotta say, I'm even more excited for the adorable Jufufu. But either way, both of these characters will be the head honcho of their respective role categories, Jufufu being stun, and Yi Xuan being the new Rupture category. We only have one more category to go though, and that is probably our strongest damage-wise, Anomaly. While we talk about this role, you're going to see a sort of pattern. Each character usually releases as the best in their field. However, the next release of Anomaly always seems to get stronger. We will start, however, with Miss Spin to Win Piper. I gotta say, I love playing as her just because of her spinny gameplay, and she's actually really strong in physical Anomaly teams. If you don't have Jane Doe, then Piper will absolutely cover for any content you need to do. Next up is probably my least favorite character to use in the game, although she's still perfectly fine and super good in electric type content, Miss Grace Howard. Being the primary Anomaly agent on the standard banner, she is still a good choice of using your selector on, even though Rena probably ends up on top. Jane was probably the #1 unit I've used over the last year in the physical Anomaly sector. Her ability to acquire Assault and just stack it on enemies is unbelievably strong and has high damage. Plus she's our premier rat waifu in the entire game. And I know you all saw that character demo, but here's where that always getting stronger concept comes in. Because when Jane released, she was the strongest character. Then Bernice released and made her even stronger, especially with that primary off-field burn disorder gameplay. As if that wasn't enough, we then got Yanagi, and she was the de facto #1 character in the game and absolutely already did way too much damage in stacking 2 different types of disorder. But wait, there's more. Because after Yanagi released, we got the other contender for #1 character in the game, Hoshimi Miyabi. I don't think there's too much we need to say about Miyabi, just that she is unbelievably strong, like I've said with so many other units in this video, and quite easy to build and play. The same does hold true for Vivian in the first half of this patch. Incredibly strong, fun to play, and definitely worth high value when she gets in her rerun. And I know this video is going a little long and there's a ton of glazing, so I'll tell you guys the #1 secret of any character in the game. By now you may have figured out that there's one character that I haven't discussed yet who is by far the best character in Zenless Zone Zero by a mile. You could even say that this character is the best pro tag in all of the gacha games. That's right, it's Belle, and we must protect her at all costs because she is so amazing. I mean, they even nerfed Belle in the worst way possible. They made her Wise's sister. And shoutouts to our good friend Night Ice for that one. I'm kidding though, I'm kidding. I still do really like Wise, but we have to agree that Belle is just simply the better choice. But there you have it for this pre-2.0 full character tier list for every role. Generally, it does tend to order from those A ranks being the lowest to our really good OP limited S ranks being the top, as it would be for any other game. But I want to hear from all of you and your thoughts in the comments below. Did I miss something? Who do you think is the best characters in the game? And who's your favorite character to play as? Also, if you found this video to help in any way, make sure you like and subscribe for 2.0. I will see you guys then, and in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.